They tried to drag her out of the trauma bay while the heart monitor was still screaming. Security hands on her elbows, rubber soles squealing on linoleum slick with antiseptic. A young resident's voice cracked somewhere behind her. Too loud, too late. "She's just a nurse," someone said, breathless with authority. "She doesn't get to make that call." The monitor didn't care. It screamed anyway. Long, flat, unforgiving. Sarah Coleman didn't fight them. She never did. 47 years old. Grey threaded through her bun. Navy scrubs faded thin at the knees. She let them pull, her shoes sliding an inch, then another, eyes still locked on the boy bleeding out on the table. 19. Barely shaving age. Blood pooling at his flank, dark and fast. The smell of iron thick in the air. "Pressure's dropping," the intern whispered, staring at the screen like it might forgive him. His hands shook. He hid them in his pockets. "Doctor." Michael Grant stood at the foot of the bed, jaw tight, ego louder than the alarms. "We follow protocol," he snapped, not looking at her. "This is my room." Sarah's gaze flicked to him. Just once. Not angry. Not afraid. Measuring. Like she was counting breaths. Like she was already 10 seconds ahead. "You can't hear it?" she said quietly. Grant scoffed. "Hear what?" "The rhythm," she replied. Her voice low. Raspy from too many night shifts. "It's wrong." The intern froze. He leaned closer to the monitor, panic blooming across his face as the numbers slid. "She's right," he breathed. "He's crashing." The doors burst open. Rain rushed in with the gurney. Paramedics shouting. And behind them, 2 men in suits that didn't belong in a public hospital. Too clean. Too calm. One flashed a badge without slowing down. "Federal custody," the taller one said. His eyes never touched the patient. They scanned exits instead. Hands, waistlines. Sarah noticed everything. The watch worn inside the wrist. The shoes, Italian leather, wrong for government pay. Her pulse slowed. Not fear. Focus. The taller man stepped closer. "Leave him. He's done." That was when Sarah stopped letting them pull. She straightened. Just a fraction. Enough to change the air in the room. Enough for the screaming monitor to feel suddenly very small. And in that moment, every person in Trauma 1 felt it, though none of them could name it yet. They had made a mistake. The emergency room did what it always did when fear showed its teeth. It got louder. Gurney wheels rattled. A metal tray clattered to the floor. Someone swore under their breath. Outside the glass doors, rain hammered the concrete like it was trying to break in. Dr. Michael Grant barked orders no one fully heard, his voice sharp, brittle, stretched thin by the sound of his own authority cracking. "Clear the bay. Now. Security. Get her out of here." He pointed, not at the men in suits, not at the gun-shaped weight under one jacket, but at Sarah. She stepped back exactly 1 pace. Not away from the patient. Away from the chaos. Her hands rose slowly, palms open, the universal language of compliance. To them it looked like surrender. To anyone who knew how to read bodies, it was spacing, control. The intern, Evan Brooks, stood frozen near the IV pole, his face pale, eyes flicking between the monitor and Sarah like a child watching parents fight. "Doctor," he said, barely audible. "We're losing him." His fingers hovered uselessly over the crash cart. He had memorized the steps. He just didn't know when to break them. The taller man in the suit moved closer to the bed. Too close. His smile was thin, practiced, meant for courtrooms and press conferences. Not for blood. "This ends now," he said, reaching inside his jacket. Sarah saw it before the fabric shifted, before the gun cleared leather, before anyone screamed. She spoke once. Down. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it landed heavy, like a judge's gavel. The nurse nearest the wall dropped instinctively. Evan dove under the cart, heart slamming. Dr. Grant hesitated. Half a second too long. Long enough for the gun to appear, matte black, wrong in a room meant for saving lives. "Don't," Grant said, voice breaking. He raised the defibrillator paddles like they might protect him. The man didn't look at Grant. He aimed at the boy on the table. Sarah moved. It wasn't fast in the way movies lie about speed. It was efficient. Her body unfolded from stillness into motion, closing distance with terrifying economy. She didn't go for the gun. She went for the wrist, twisting into the joint with a crack that cut through the alarms. The weapon skidded across the floor. She drove her elbow into his chest, hard, precise, collapsing his breath. The second man reached for his backup piece. Sarah didn't hesitate. She kicked the metal tray. It slid. It hit. The shot went wide, glass exploding behind her. She picked up the fallen gun, checked it without looking. 2 controlled shots, not to kill, to end it. Silence slammed down. The monitor beeped again. Weak, but alive. Dr. Grant stared at her like the room had shifted under his feet. "Who," he whispered, "are you?" Sarah didn't answer. She was already back at the table, pressing gauze into the wound, her voice steady as stone. "Charge to 200. Clear." And for the first time that night, everyone listened. The rotors hit before the sirens. A deep, concussive thump rolled through the ceiling, rattling lights, vibrating glass, shaking the bones of the building. The sound didn't belong to ambulances or news choppers. Every person in the room felt it in their chest before they understood it with their ears. Dr. Grant looked up first, confused, then angry, then quietly afraid. "What the hell is that?" he muttered, as if the hospital owed him an explanation. Sarah didn't look up. She never did when she already knew the answer. The boy's pulse flickered under her fingers, thin, stubborn. She leaned closer, voice low, meant only for him. "Stay with me," she said. It wasn't comforting. It was an order. Boots thundered in the hallway, not running, advancing, measured, heavy. The double doors burst open and men flooded in, dark uniforms, weapons down but ready, eyes hard, moving like one organism with too many limbs. FBI hostage rescue team patches caught the light. Laser dots skimmed walls, carts, the ceiling, then vanished as quickly as they appeared. "Stand down," a voice commanded. "Calm. Absolute. Medical staff, hands where we can see them." People obeyed without thinking. Nurses pressed back against walls. Evan crawled out from under the cart, shaking so hard his badge rattled. Dr. Grant raised his hands slowly, his mouth opening and closing, dignity leaking out of him with every breath. The man leading them stepped forward. Early 50s, silver hair cut close, eyes that had seen too many endings. Jack Miller took in the room in one sweep. 2 bodies on the floor, a suppressed pistol tucked into a nurse's waistband. Blood everywhere. And Sarah Coleman at the bedside, steady as a metronome, counting drops. He stopped, lowered his rifle. The room held its breath. Miller straightened, heels clicking together in a sound that sliced through the silence. He raised his hand and snapped a salute so sharp it felt like a slap. "Captain Cole," he said, voice thick, reverent. "We thought you were dead." Sarah finally looked up, just long enough for the old name to settle in the air like dust. "I was busy," she replied. Then she nodded toward the patient. "He's stabilizing. You can take him now." Around them, the hospital seemed to shrink, walls closing in on the truth. Dr. Grant stared, realization crawling up his spine, cold and humiliating. The quiet nurse wasn't quiet at all. She had just been waiting. They cleared the room like a crime scene and a confession all at once. Yellow tape went up fast. Phones were taken. Names were written down on gloved hands. Nurses were escorted into the waiting area, whispering prayers, replaying the last 10 minutes in their heads like a bad dream that refused to end. Evan Brooks looked back once, eyes wide, searching for Sarah. She met his gaze and gave the smallest nod. "You're okay." That was all it said. It was enough. When the doors finally closed, only a handful remained. Jack Miller, 2 HRT operators, the wounded boy being transferred onto a federal gurney, and Sarah Coleman, sitting on the edge of the crash cart, blood drying on her sleeves like rust. Miller exhaled. The edge came off him just a little. 6 years, he said quietly. We searched Berlin, Warsaw, Bangkok. We pulled every burned file we weren't supposed to admit existed. You vanished. Sarah slid the glasses back onto her face, the motion deliberate, controlled. I didn't vanish, she said. I stopped being useful to the wrong people. Miller's jaw tightened. He nodded toward the unconscious men being cuffed on the floor. Those weren't cartel muscle. Too clean. Too disciplined. I know, Sarah said. They came for the kid. Lucas Reyes, Miller replied. 19. Son of a cartel accountant who decided to steal something he shouldn't have. He lowered his voice. A ledger. Sarah's expression didn't change, but something sharpened behind her eyes. And now, everyone wants him dead. Yes, Miller said, including people with better funding than street gangs. The gurney started rolling. Sarah stood. Her joints protested, old pain waking up, but she ignored it. You can't take him to the field office, she said. Miller blinked. Excuse me. They knew he was here before local PD did, Sarah continued. 5 minutes after the ambulance. That's an inside leak. You take him to the office. He doesn't see morning. Silence stretched. Rain battered the roof. Miller studied her the way you study a map when you know you're already lost. Where then? Sarah reached under the nurse's station and pulled out a battered canvas bag no one had ever looked twice at. Someplace not on your list, she said. Someplace I built for nights like this. Miller hesitated, then nodded once. All right, Captain, he said. We do it your way. Outside, the rotors kept turning, impatient. They didn't leave in a convoy that announced itself. No black SUVs. No flashing lights. The kind of exit that told the city something important was happening. Miller made a call, short and coded, then cut the line. Minutes later, they were moving through the service tunnel beneath the hospital, the air damp, smelling of oil and old concrete. A battered grey ambulance rolled ahead of them, its paint chipped, its lights dead. To anyone watching a camera feed, it was just another overnight transfer. Inside, Lucas Reyes lay strapped to the gurney, pale under the fluorescence, eyes open now. He looked too young to understand how close death had leaned over him. Am I under arrest? He asked, voice thin, trying to sound older than he was. Miller glanced at Sarah. She answered instead. You're under protection, she said. There's a difference. Lucas swallowed. They said they'd kill my mother. Sarah checked his IV without breaking eye contact. They say a lot of things when they're losing control. The ambulance lurched into motion. Rain streaked the small rear windows, turning the city into smears of red and white light. 2 HRT operators sat opposite Sarah, weapons cradled, eyes scanning reflections more than glass. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Every nerve in the vehicle was already awake. Miller leaned closer to her, voice low. You still move like it's 2018, he said. Same spacing. Same tells Wusul. Muscle memory doesn't retire, Sarah replied. And the Valkyrie file, he added carefully. You know what reopening it means. Sarah's jaw tightened. Just a fraction. It never closed, she said. It was buried. The ambulance slowed, turned, slipped off the main road and into a corridor of warehouses and rusted chain-link fences. Sodium lights flickered overhead, then went dark. One by one. Too clean. Too deliberate. Sarah felt it before the sound reached them. Her shoulders squared. Stop, she said. The driver hesitated. Captain, now. The explosion hit the lead vehicle first. A bloom of fire. A shock wave that slammed the ambulance sideways. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. Lucas cried out as Sura threw herself over him, shielding his body with hers. Gunfire erupted. Close. Automatic. Professional. Miller shouted into his radio, Ambush! Ambush! Dara lifted her head, eyes already tracking angles, exits, shadows. Her voice cut through the chaos, cold and certain. "Everyone out," she said. "We're not dying in this box." And the night closed in, hungry. The ambulance doors flew open into smoke and rain. Sarah hit the ground first, boots sliding on wet asphalt, one hand gripping the stretcher frame, the other already pulling a smoke canister from Miller's vest. She didn't ask. She never asked. The pin came free. White swallowed the street in a violent bloom, thick and blinding, turning gunfire into sound without shape. "Move," she said, not loud, not panicked, final. Bullets stitched the metal skin of the ambulance, sharp metallic punches that echoed inside the chest. One operator went down hard, screaming, clutching his thigh as red spilled through his fingers. Sarah was there instantly, dropping to her knees in the rain, ripping fabric, fingers slick and precise. "Look at me," she said. "Breathe." She cinched a tourniquet high, twisted until the bleeding slowed, until the scream turned into a gasp. She nodded once. "You're not dying here." Miller dragged Lucas free of the wreckage, hauling him toward the dark mouth of a warehouse door Sarah had already marked in her head. She covered them, firing controlled bursts into muzzle flashes that bloomed and vanished through the smoke. She didn't chase. She denied space. Every shot forced the attackers back into uncertainty. They crashed through the warehouse entrance, metal screaming as the door slammed shut behind them. Inside it was cavernous and dead. Old machines looming like skeletons. The air smelled of rust and dust. Miller shoved a workbench into place as rounds punched through the door, sparks spraying like fireflies. "We're pinned," one operator shouted. "They've got thermals." Sarah scanned the ceiling, the pipes, the ancient steam valves crusted with age. Her mind moved faster than her body ever could. "Not for long," she said. She crossed the floor under fire, iron bar in hand, muscles burning as she swung at the valve wheel. Once. Nothing again. Rust flaked. Footsteps thundered outside. Voices counting down. She struck a third time. The valve sheared with a scream. Steam erupted into the warehouse, a violent white roar that swallowed everything, heat crashing down like a wall. Shouts turned to panic. "I can't see. Thermals are blown. We're blind." Sarah moved through the fog like a memory. Silent. Relentless. She used the chaos, the machines, the fear. She didn't need to win. She needed time. She reached the back stairwell as the door behind her rattled under gunfire. She jammed it shut, then slid down into darkness where cold water and sewer stench waited. Miller was there, breathless, eyes wide. "You're insane," he said. Sarah didn't slow. "I'm a nurse," she replied. "We know how to survive pressure." And somewhere above them, the hunters realized their prey had vanished again. They surfaced an hour later beneath a forgotten bridge where the river moved slow and dark, carrying secrets like it always had. Sarah climbed the rusted ladder first, water dripping from her sleeves, breath steady despite the ache crawling back into her joints. The rain had thinned to a mist. City lights reflected off the black surface of the water in broken lines. To the untrained eye, it was just another dead stretch of industrial Chicago. To her, It was home ground. The boat waited exactly where she'd left it. Long, low, paint peeling in sheets. A converted fishing trawler that looked abandoned enough to be invisible. Grey Lady. She tossed a rope, tied it without looking, then helped Miller haul Lucas aboard. The boy collapsed onto the deck, shivering, shock setting in now that the adrenaline was gone. Inside, the air was warm, clean. The hum of a generator settled into the bones. Sarah moved automatically, switching lights, opening cabinets, laying out supplies. The soldier faded. The nurse took over. She checked Lucas's vitals, adjusted the drip, wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. "You're safe," she said. "Not comfort. Statement." Miller leaned against the bulkhead, watching her hands. Hands that had broken a man's wrist without blinking were now threading a needle with surgical calm. "They killed your team," he said quietly. "Back in Kandahar." Sarah didn't look up. "They sold us," she replied. "Drug routes hidden in flag-draped coffins. When we reported it, our coordinates leaked." 5 minutes later, an American drone erased my unit. Silence pressed in. Even the river seemed to listen. Lucas swallowed hard. "The ledger proves it," he said. "Aegis dynamics, weapons sales, bribes, everything." Sarah tied off the stitch and finally met Miller's eyes. "Julian Vaughn," she said. The name tasted old, bitter. He was there. He signed the order. Miller nodded. "He's in Chicago. Tomorrow night. Charity gala at the Drake." Sarah closed the medical kit, walked to a locked chest at the foot of her bunk. When it opened, it revealed not supplies, but tools, armor plates, flashbangs, a sleek black evening dress folded like a promise. Miller exhaled slowly. "You're going after him." Sarah's reflection stared back at her from the steel wall. Older, scarred, unfinished. "I'm not hunting him," she said. "I'm ending this." Outside, the river kept moving, indifferent. Inside, the plan had already begun. The Drake Hotel glowed like a lie told well. Crystal chandeliers poured warm light onto marble floors. String music floated through the air, smooth and expensive, tuned to calm donors and dull instincts. Men in tuxedos laughed too loud. Women in silk leaned close, trading influence in murmurs. Security blended into the walls, earpieces hidden, eyes always moving. This was a room built to make power feel clean. Sarah Cole stepped into it and became someone else. The bun was gone. Her hair fell in controlled waves over bare shoulders. The dress clung where it needed to, moved when she moved. Midnight blue against skin, marked by an old pale scar near her shoulder blade. She walked like she belonged. Not fast, not careful. Certain. Heads turned. They always did when confidence entered a room. Julian Vaughn stood near the center, exactly where a man like him believed he should. Mid-50s, silver hair, smile practiced over decades of wars he never fought himself. His tuxedo fit like it had been tailored around his ego. On his right hand, The ring caught the light. Heavy. Onyx. Platinum band. The key. I see him, Miller's voice murmured in her ear from somewhere above, calm but tight. 10 minutes before the security sweep resets. Plenty, Sarah replied. She crossed the floor, accepting a glass she didn't drink from a passing tray, letting the rhythm of the room carry her forward. Vaughan noticed her at the last moment. His eyes lingered. Curiosity first, then interest. He smiled. "Mr. Vaughan," she said, accent light, European enough to intrigue. "A beautiful event. Only because people like you attend," he replied smoothly. "Have we met?" "Not yet." He offered his hand. She took it. Cold skin. Strong grip. He led her onto the dance floor, as if it were his idea. The orchestra swelled. They moved together, measured, elegant. His hand settled at her waist. Her fingers brushed the ring. "Once, twice you seemed tense," she murmured. "Loose ends," he said. She leaned in, close enough for memory to wake. "You missed," she whispered, dropping the accent. The smile froze. Color drained from his face. "Vance?" he breathed. She smiled back, soft and lethal, as the cloner in her purse blinked green. The music stopped, and the room began to fall apart. The sprinklers exploded without warning, turning silk and diamonds into soaked panic. Alarms screamed, guests scattered. Security surged in all directions at once, hands to jackets, shouting over each other as water poured down like cold rain. Sarah kicked off her heels and ran. The dress tore at the hem. She didn't slow. She crashed through the kitchen doors as steel clanged and chefs dove for cover, the smell of steam and burning oil filling the air. He was waiting for her. The man stepped out of the shadows by the loading dock, tall, coat dark with rain, a silenced pistol steady in his hand. His wrist was wrapped in a fresh cast. His smile was thin with memory. He held Evan Brooks by the hair, forcing the young agent to his knees. Blood streaked Evan's face. His eyes found Sarah's. Fear. Apology. "End of the road," the man said. "You embarrassed me." Behind her, the doors swung open again. Julian Vaughan entered, drenched, furious, flanked by guards. The room shrank. Guns came up. Sarah raised her hands slowly, empty, breath controlled. Vaughan backhanded her hard enough to split her lip. She tasted blood. She didn't blink. "You took my ring," Vaughan said, voice shaking with rage. "It won't save you." "Maybe not," Sarah replied. "But it ends you." Vaughan laughed and turned away. "Kill them," he said casually. "Slow." Sarah's eyes flicked to the wall, a magnetic knife strip. She moved. The knife left her hand in a blur, not at Vaughan, but at the fire suppression pipe above the mercenary's head. It punctured metal. Foam detonated downward, blinding him, choking the space in white chaos. Sarah dove, rolled, came up with his gun. Shots cracked. A guard fell. Another screamed. A round caught Sarah in the shoulder, spinning her into a steel table. She dropped, breath knocked out of her, vision tunneling. Then the loading dock door shattered inward. The ambulance burst through in a storm of metal. 2 guards went down under its weight. Evan crawled free as suppressive fire roared. Sarah dragged herself up, grabbed him, and dove into the back as the vehicle lurched away. She lay on the floor, bleeding, staring at her purse. The cloner still glowed green. They had the truth. Now they had to survive it. The city tried to swallow them whole. The ambulance vanished into the concrete veins beneath downtown, tires screaming once before the engine cut, and silence slammed in, thick with blood and burned rubber. Sarah slid down the wall, breath ragged now, the strength finally bleeding out of her, along with the red soaking her sleeve. Miller knelt beside her, eyes dark, already tearing open a kit. "Bullet's still in," he said. "I know," she replied. She took his flask, swallowed hard, then poured the rest over forceps. Her hand didn't shake. Pain was old news. She dug into her own shoulder, jaw locked, breath measured. The slug clinked into metal. Evan looked away, pale, reverent. Lucas stared at the laptop balanced on his knees, fingers flying, panic rising. "It won't upload," he said. "Everything's blocked. News, cloud, all of it." Miller's face hardened. "Vaughn owns the pipes," he said. "Media, servers, narratives. He's already rewriting us." Sarah tied off the bandage, stood on unsteady legs. "Then we stop using his pipes." Miller knew what she meant. His eyes lifted. "The override," he said quietly. "That's suicide." "The transmitter's on the top floor," she replied. "He won't expect us to go back in." They moved before doubt could root. Up steel stairs, through locked doors. Alarms howled. Vaughn waited in the server room, gun pressed to Lucas's temple, smile feral with certainty. "Drop them," he said. "I decide what's true." Sarah lowered her weapon, met his eyes. "You forgot something," she said. "Truth doesn't need permission." She lunged, not at him, but at the console. Her palm slammed the override. The tone ripped through the room, brutal and undeniable. Screens lit up. Vaughn's voice echoed back at him, confessing, boasting, unraveling. For one heartbeat, power left at him. Miller tackled him. Guns clattered. Sirens surged closer. When it was over, Vaughn was on the floor in cuffs, screaming at screens that no longer listened. And Sarah was already gone. By the time the building was secured, Sarah Cole no longer existed. Jack Miller searched the server floor once, then again, boots crunching over glass and broken plastic, calling her name only once before stopping himself. He already knew. On the cold tile near the console lay her nurse's ID, bent, smeared with blood. The photo still calm, still ordinary. He picked it up carefully, like evidence and like a relic. Around him, agents shouted updates, radios crackled. Headlines were already being written by voices Vaughn could no longer silence. Lucas Reyes was wrapped in a blanket, alive, shaking, staring at the screens where the truth kept looping, impossible to erase now. Evan Brooks sat against the wall, bandaged, exhausted, watching the chaos with new eyes. He had seen who saved him. He would never forget it. 2 weeks later, the city moved on the way cities always do. Vaughn's empire collapsed in stages. Boards resigned. Accounts froze. Names disappeared from buildings overnight. Mercy General returned to its rhythms. New shifts. New faces. Another quiet nurse took the night rotation in Trauma 1. Jack Miller stood on a river walk at dusk, phone buzzing once in his pocket. One message, no number, just a photo of a calm horizon and 6 simple words. Shift ended. Patient stable. No signature. None was needed. Somewhere, Sarah was walking away from the noise, from the cameras, from the medals she never wanted. She had done what she always did. She showed up. She held the line. Then she vanished before the world could decide what to call her. Not every hero stands on a stage. Some stand at the foot of a hospital bed. Some move through fire so others can sleep. If this story stayed with you, show it some support. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with 3 words. Quiet strength wins.